Hello everyone, this is John Crisp. This is my Airdrome Airplanes 3/4 scale Fokker Dr-1 Triplane Walkaround video. Started the plane in 2004, finished it in 2014. It's powered by a SCAT 2180 motor that Valley Engineering did the firewall forward package on. It's got their 2-to-1 redrive. It's got a Culver 80-52-inch propeller. It flies great. As you can see from the paint scheme, it was inspired by the Great Waldo Pepper. I used the Stewart Systems for the fabric, and I used Behr Ultra Premium house paint. I used a 1-inch foam roller. I basically stenciled all the markings on with a Sharpie and used the 1-inch foam brush to do the checkerboard paint scheme, and I used the 6-inch foam roller to finish the paint work. As I move in here to the cockpit, you'll see it's got a basic instrument cluster. Of course, I had to have the guns. I'll talk about those in a second. And as you can look in, I do fly with a radio. I carry a handheld radio in the airplane, and I use the headset for communication, which makes a big difference to have radio capability. Basic instrument cluster here: airspeed, altimeter, vertical speed, cylinder head temperature, voltmeter, oil temperature, oil pressure, tachometer. I have a backup cylinder head gauge as well. The Peltor headsets make a big difference. I'm glad I have them. The guns I basically built out of styrofoam, balsa wood, and PVC pipe, and I used a drill bit and a cutoff wheel basically to do the slots in the guns. I think they came out pretty good. And here's just a quick look inside the cockpit. So we move around the airplane, pretty much basic. Use leather doilies around any of the openings on the fabric. You can see the wing fairings here. Been working on these different design ideas to how to get these fairings in there. There was a 2-inch gap between the bottom wing and the fuselage. These aluminum fairings are bolted in, and there's a 2-inch piece of blue styrofoam inside of there. I'm going to go ahead and do a gap up against the middle wing and the fuselage here. I'm going to use a piece of clear plexiglass because I actually use that gap to look down quite a bit while I'm flying. And you can just see the gaps up in the other areas of the wing I'm going to clean up. Talking about cooling as we move around here, I've added 4 scoops on the engine here, basically on the cowling. It's made a big difference. Basically, these scoops take in air. There's a baffling plate at that line, and there's a firewall, a false firewall forward. Added a 2-inch additional basically scoop on the front of the oil cooler here, and I've added these bottom plates underneath the motor, and that's to keep the air from damming up underneath the motor and climbing at cruise, and it helps move the airflow down through the oil cooler, and it's been very effective. I also leave the front of the engine open. I have a plate there, but this lets me take the cowling off without having to take the propeller off, and it lets some additional air inside the airplane here. I also have added some scoops for cooling inside the cowling, and I'll move the propeller out of the way here, and you can see that these scoops sit inside. I didn't want to block the opening completely, but it forces air down over the cylinder head, and it still lets air in around the motor for the carburetor and just additional cooling in conjunction with these additional scoops all around. As you can see here, it's made a big difference. And that's actually dropped my oil temperatures about 15 degrees by putting all this additional air cooling. My goal is to get definite positive pressure above the motor and push air down out. And I've been very happy with all of my temperatures basically at this point. And it encourages a low pressure area back behind the motor to suck air out so it doesn't run up against the firewall. Also wrapped my rear 2 exhaust pipes with this insulation. That's helped with the cooling. They've made a big difference. It's about 115 degrees at the tips. The pipes with the wrap are cooler than the ones without, and I'm going to add it at some point here before I fly it again, more than likely. You know, basically I have the airfoil wing to go over the axle that you see a lot. It's really not something that I fly with. It's just additional drag. The drag of the guns was worth it for me. But this is it. I've been flying it. I've got about 10 flights on it now. It's flying great. I certainly have all of the respect in the world for the airplane. It can be tricky to land as long as you don't bounce. That's kind of been my main experience with it. Cruises at about 65 miles an hour at about 80% power, and I love having it. So thanks for the look.